Welcome to Candidly Copilot with your hosts, Chad Stout and Michael Gannotti. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and let's get candid with Copilot.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to Candidly Copilot. My co-host is not available today, so you got just me, but we have got a packed agenda I'm pretty excited about. So without further ado, since we're limited on time, whoops, and we're trying to redo that intro. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to keep the QA panel open. So if anybody joins, feel free to go ahead and post your questions here in the QA panel. And I'm going to go ahead and just say, create a post, just so everybody will know. Post questions and comments here. There we go. So a couple of housekeeping items. As I just mentioned, we have a QA panel. So if you join and you'd like to go ahead and post stuff, or if you're going to join future episodes, you'll see this recording, maybe you decide you want to tune in. Go ahead. Every time we'll have the QA panel, you can just come in, post questions and answers there. We'll queue those up, watch those, and make sure we get to those. But today we've got a packed agenda. So we're going to be talking about, we talked last episode about kind of our approach to these sessions where we're going to take the crawl, walk, run approach. And I mentioned talking about my favorite IT movie of all time, What About Bob? If you're not watching, if you haven't watched it, watch it with Bill Murray and, Richard Dreyfuss. And so great movie, but it brings out that, concept of really baby steps, right? Little bite-sized increments to move people along on a predictable and continuous motion to get from point A to point B and continuing throughout the life cycle of things. But today we're going to talk about before you actually begin getting your data in the cloud, and if the data is there, a topic that came up with a customer of mine just this morning, concerned about, hey, well, we're exposing, we could search and find these things, but this is making even more upfront, and maybe we haven't done due diligence. And I get that. I get it. So we're going to talk about that today as part of it. This is really that before you even crawl, due diligence. But I'm going to talk about, more importantly, how you can not only before you crawl, but if you're excited to begin testing and piloting, you shouldn't have to wait. You should not have to wait. So we'll talk about some things you can do concurrently as a temp measure to enable all that. In addition, I'll have a time for open QA. So if anybody joins, you'll be able to come in, and not quite sure. I thought I had disabled video, but I see we're getting some other people in. It might be under people. So yeah. So at any rate, we'll be covering that topic. I'll have time for open QA. Again, if you join and you want to post a question, go ahead and post that in the QA panel. And that way I can see those. You can post comments. You can give shout outs as to where you're from. And love to hear, from you. Then we're going to have, after QA, our prompt of the week. I have a pretty cool prompt I'm excited about. And then we'll do a quick wrap up. So without further ado, let's start talking about before you crawl. So I'll pull up the instance that happened this morning with a customer, because I think it's a good example of where we get to and how we can enable some of these things. Was presenting with a customer today, showing them all kinds of things they could do with Copilot, right? I had a custom set up some repositories in SharePoint, went ahead, was querying across those, pulling back data, creating FAQs, et cetera. And the worry was that, if we have all this stuff here, all this data, and people are now using Copilot to get to it, we're making it even easier than it was in search to find information, extract data and information that maybe we don't want them having access to, but we didn't quite get our permissions right out the gate. Also that, as they were creating these queries and stuff, they wanted to restrict some of the things that were being done. And so, they said, look, we're concerned with, if we got data in exchange, Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, and then potentially other data sources, how can we make sure that we are properly securing that data so that when people conduct a generative AI prompt, that it'll only generate the response based upon data that they not only have access to, but that they should? It was a great question by the customer. So first thing is this. Microsoft does have tools around that kind of securing of the data. So Microsoft, if you haven't heard of it, your security folks should have. Microsoft Purview is one of the tools in our arsenal. We have a whole layer of different tools, but Microsoft Purview is a tool that will let you go in and do a range of things, such as data loss protection, setting up rules, et cetera, so that as your internal folks, are posting content out there all over in SharePoint, in Teams, and attached to emails, et cetera, that data is being, first of all, classified, right? We want to do some things around sensitive labels, et cetera, auto classification, but then also not only labeling it, but securing it appropriately, right? So that we can restrict access where needed. We can do a whole range of activities leveraging the power of Purview. And that's one of the great things there. But that is we need to go through and we want to really get in place all those rules and have it set up so it's humming along and taking care of that, not only on all the data that's there, but on the ongoing data that's being generated and put into Microsoft 365. And so customers will say, well, maybe we have to just hold back on everything because, hey, we can't risk this. So two things. Number one, if you have people with access to data that maybe they should not have access to, then what you're able to do is, number one, they could go and search on that data, right? So is it as easily accessed and brought forward in search? Granted, no, because in search, I have to go in, I conduct a search, I get 1 of 10 trillion million, right, results, and then I got to open the different web pages, documents, et cetera, to see, what's there and does it meet the needs, and then I have to further synthesize that out. But if they are conducting that, they already have access to it. It is. So search is also putting you potentially, if you're that concerned, if you have not done Purview and done your due diligence around, automatic sensitivity labels and securing of the data, et cetera, then you still have, the ostrich head in the sand is not a safeguard to that data and it being used, by people who probably shouldn't have access to some of it. So what Microsoft provides is also a temporary measure. That this is the second part, right? They have access already, not as easy, but we provide a method by which they can go in, you can go in, from a management standpoint, and not only control and lock down what they're going to have access to for maybe a pilot, an initial go through where you're going to get a couple thousand users to begin really testing this, but having access to some quality data. But it'll also restrict where they can't get what they shouldn't have access to in SharePoint. And that's called SharePoint restricted search. So Microsoft has rolled this out. I presented to it last year to a customer, and I'll never forget sitting in a breakout session with the CEO of this particular company. And he was like, they're telling me, IT's telling me we can't do this, we can't do it because people are going to get it and stuff is going to pop up that they should not have access to. And I said, whoa. He was very animated, and I got it because, especially when there's a risk of, when we're talking, I'm in healthcare and life sciences, right? And we're at risk sometimes of people going in and copying and pasting stuff, putting it places they should not. And yes, we're going to get those other things into place, but in the meantime, they can still get at search. So I pointed out that we have this thing called SharePoint restricted search. It's not meant to be a forever. In fact, if you use it for forever, shame on you. So anybody who institutes this and just uses it as a forever, we need to have words. We need to talk because you are really shortchanging your users. But for a pilot, for an initial piece where you're first getting in there, SharePoint restricted search will allow you to go ahead and to crank down the available data that a user is going to have access to through Copilot and SharePoint search. So both. And how it works is this. When you initiate and turn on SharePoint restricted search, it's going to first of all say, look, all the SharePoint that's out there, you have to explicitly enable specific sites that you are comfortable with making that a data available to all the users in Copilot / searching in SharePoint. That allows you to say, okay, look, we got all this HR documentation. There's the stuff on the company, on our internal portal, maybe some other sites, processes, procedures, etc., that are validated content and that everybody should have. And you can go in, site by site, and allow those to be a part of the experience for both SharePoint Search and Microsoft 365 Copilot. You can do that with up to 100 sites. So as you're looking to pilot, you're looking to get your ducks in a row using something like Microsoft Purview to go in, and you want to do automatic sensitivity labeling, locking down of documents, data loss protection, all that kind of stuff. You can concurrently begin using Microsoft 365 Copilot and ensure that your SharePoint search isn't surfacing the same data that you're now suddenly worried about. And you can do that with up to 100 sites. Again, it's meant to be a temporary measure. So first of all, it'll then put those sites that you allow available. So, your folks can query, they can do all that again, do all the goodness that you get in Copilot there for maybe your pilot effort, your testing where you're doing a few thousand users and really hammering against it. But it also then will concurrently allow them to see their data, right? So they have email, they have, Teams data that's theirs, they have their OneDrive. It lets them see their data specifically. So it doesn't disallow that. So again, you're still getting a lot of very valuable content. Like I was demoing today and showing as a part of it, I had some data that I had set up, and I had stuff in OneDrive and some others, and was showing querying that data and pulling back and generating responses using Microsoft 365 Copilot and generative AI. And I was able to do all that. They'd still be able to do that, right? For both the allowed sites and their data. And one additional, if there is content explicitly, not generally, but let's say a document is explicitly shared to them, they'll have that as well too. So still, it's not meant to be permanent. You should definitely not be doing this permanent. Like I said, if you do, we should have a discussion. I would love to have a QA on here about that if you're doing that. But SharePoint restricted search in tandem with Microsoft Purview is going to allow you to concurrently start to work safely with Copilot, not worrying, oh my goodness, we didn't secure our data and now people are going to get all this stuff, because it's going to secure it in Copilot and SharePoint search. And you should be concerned about both if you're truly concerned. So it's going to allow that while you get your ducks in a row with Purview to actually start doing some of those automated processes around data loss protection, sensitivity labels, all that good stuff that you get out of that, right? So you can continue to move on, move forward, test, continue to roll out safely, add additional sites as you're also looking through that content, additional pieces that you want to pull in, up to 100 with restricted search. And then when you're ready with Purview, go ahead and just open the floodgates and let people rock and roll. So that's our kind of, next week, we're actually going to be talking about, now that you have the data in, some of those first steps. But prior to actually rolling out, right, as you're getting your data up in the cloud, that's really those two things. And I could go in and spend hours talking about each one, but this is a 30-minute podcast. So with that, I'm going to open up. I see we have, somebody, I have an attendee, and I know that we didn't widely put this out. We're just trying to get our feet wet on the roll with the process here. My co-host couldn't make it today, but thank you for joining. And if you have a question, please post it into the Q&A panel. You can click on QA at the top, and it'll open up much like chat. Post a question in there, and I'll see that, and I can respond in real time. So I'll let that. I'll just pause for a moment and see if we have any questions. No questions. If you do have one, go ahead and type it. If not, I'm going to move into the next section, but I can backtrack into Q&A. I see there is a new post. So I do have a question. Awesome. What do we have? What are you most excited about for the future of Copilot agents, Copilot and agents, and the roadmap? I have to be careful what I say. We have a bit. First of all, I will say something I'm very excited about. And if you have not signed up, you need to do so. You can attend the whole conference virtually, but in November, Microsoft Ignite. Sign up for it, attend it virtually. And if you sign up, you can go back and watch all these different sessions, even on demand. There's going to be just a ton of goodness. People were like, oh, wave 2, that's big. No, Ignite's big. So that's kind of a general thing. But I will tell you, just what I was showing today, and it's stuff we already announced, but is starting to roll out, is going to be rolling out to customers. So agents is absolutely one of the things that gets me the most excited, right? We just announced today we're going to start providing a bunch more ready agents for customers. You're going to continue to see some of that trickle out before Ignite. But two that we previously announced, actually 3, I'll talk about those. Number 1, agents in SharePoint. Agents in SharePoint is so powerful and so flipping easy to do. It's like when that rolls out, we have targeted releases end of October. So targeted release, right? And then it's going to, we're going to continue to roll out. But that's something that I show very frequently, where I'll take a repository. I had a customer this morning where I created 2 folders in SharePoint, and I dumped, like in one of them, they had tons of service manuals, big documents, and them all in PDF form out on their public website. So I grabbed them and I threw them in one folder. And then on the other folder, they had a whole bunch of their service descriptions and services. I grabbed those, dumped that in. That's content that is impossible to search. I mean, it just, if you're using search to try to find what you need, it's the most frustrating aspect in the world, right? You're like, okay, I need the following. You may say what it is, and it's something that exists in a particular document, and you get back a bunch of document responses, and then you have to go through those manually and comb through them. How much easier it is to create an agent with no code with a single click, right? So I can go up today, open up a library because I have access to it, and I can click in that library, create a Copilot, right? And so I click, boop, and it quickly creates an agent. It's generic, right? It has a box for typing in prompts, gives the generic suggested prompts. But then I can click edit, and I can add additional folders, files, or sites internally to that. So I can span more than just a single folder, I can go multiple folders. And then in the suggested prompts, I can change the prompts to make them relevant to my thing, like create an FAQ based upon the folders, folder X and folder Y. And I have that suggested prompt. And a user, when I click save, that agent, I get a shareable link that I can publish on a web page. I can drop it into a Teams chat or QA just like this. There's a million things I can do. Send it an email, etc. So my team members, the folks that I work with, they all have that, and they can have a standalone agent that lets them open it, query, and get exactly what they want. So like I did the example for this whole manuals thing. I said, create an FAQ based upon the content of, and then it was this folder that I named, and it cranked out an FAQ, right? And then I said, provide additional detail, blah, 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 even more. So that's a simple example, and it is simple. It is pure, as long as you have the appropriate permissions, pure point and click. I think customers, when I have showed that to them, they have been like, oh my gosh, you have no idea. We have these large project management repositories and others that they've become dumping grounds, and nobody can get the useful information out of it. Not anymore. Now with Copilot and with agents in SharePoint. That's one. The other one that I showed today was I created an agent within Teams itself. It pops up when you go into Copilot chat once that rolls out, and I could go in there, create an agent, and I could customize for myself stuff that I need to query across internally. And again, and then it looks at all that content, and unlike the SharePoint one, which gives me generic prompts, if you've seen an agent in Teams, and you get a bunch of those like dialog boxes, right, that pop up, it actually, based upon the content in the repositories that you point it to, and you just give the URLs, and it can include web-based if you allow, but you give the URLs, and bam, it generates those suggested prompts, all based upon the actual content. And then I can go in, I can further edit and do what I want, and then save it, and it becomes available right on the right-hand side. So those are two. The third one is with Copilot Studio. I can go in very quickly, and for theirs, I put it against their baseline website, and it gave me some suggested prompts for the website. And then I showed actually asking questions. If I was a clinician, going in and asking some question about hours of operations at certain hospitals, or surgery prep, etc. And it just started churning out all that based upon their publicly available info. So 3 levels of agents where you can extend the capabilities, and it's point and click. We were making it easy. You're going to have to give people the appropriate permission so you can kind of control that. But that's what I get those things I get jazzed about. And when I show them to customers, they're like, oh, I can get immediate value from that. So I hope that answers your question. If you have any more, feel free to post it. But I know we're down to 24 after. So I do want to post the prompt of the week. And let's come on over here. The prompt of the week. Drum roll, please. I should add audio to this. So with the prompt of the week. So this is one I pulled out of our internal instantiation of Prompt Buddy. So if you haven't seen Prompt Buddy, do a search on it. Say, type in Copilot Prompt Buddy. There is these folks that have put out, like Eric Olson and others. I got to give credit. They've put this out there in GitHub, and you can download it for your org, have it available in Teams, and then you can have questions like ours. Since we cover so many things, I can sort based on industry or all kinds of different things to make it useful. And I pulled one from healthcare. Somebody had posted this, and I think it's I thought it was pretty good. So the scenario is this. You want to create an internal memo outlining best practices for maintaining patient confidentiality. That's pretty important, right? And then what is this? This prompt is going to create concise internal memo that outlines best practices for maintaining patient confidentiality, ensuring compliance with current privacy laws such as HIPAA. It provides staff with clear guidance on how to handle patient information responsibly, protect sensitive data, and adhere to legal requirements, reinforcing the importance of privacy within the healthcare setting. So going back to the, what I'm excited about with agents, you may set up an agent that's looking at some specific approved content from your organization and the queries it, and then you can put in a prompt like this and others to pull back information that's based upon high value approved information and data. Oh, and she said, thank you. You're welcome. So here it is. And I'm going to drop this. Whoops. I guess I'm not. I'm going to go back. Previous. I will put it into the post. There we go. So the prompt is this. Draft an internal memo outlining the best practices for maintaining patient confidentiality in accordance with current privacy laws. As long as you have that data published, right? We probably don't want to go out to the public internet because there's all kinds of data out there. But if you are pointing an agent, you could set this up today with a Copilot Studio. If you're leveraging an agent, then you could go ahead and have that agent available right there for your users where, right in Teams, they could say that. You could publish it and have them invoke it and pull it out in another kind of document, right? So maybe you want to generate a Word doc or whatever, but you want to handle it with email. But the point is, here is a prompt that you can use. I'll put the whole steps right here in our post with the recording. So if you like to use it, if you like to share that idea with your users, play around with it, you're free to do so. So that's our prompt of the week. There's the drum roll, and we're done with that. And we're at 2 minutes till. So for wrap up, before you get your data or you're worried about your data that's up there, and you want to roll out Copilot, you want to get a few hundred, few thousand users to start, really working with it and get your best practices and all that stuff. Microsoft Purview, to start automating the securing of that data is key. Talk to your Microsoft sales team. That's the next step. Talk to them. Have your security folks from Microsoft talk to you about how you can do that. They are happy to have that conversation. They have a lot of experience already. We've been doing it with some very big customers. And if you need a further safeguard as you go, because you're like, well, until we get that in place, I want people to start using it, but I really need to ratchet it down. Take a look at SharePoint restricted search. I'll have a link to both of those and information about them in the resources on the standalone post for this. So check that out. You'll be able to do that. And this post will be posted, as always, to aka.ms/HLS blog. That's aka.ms/HLS blog. Feel free to go in there to take a look. Candidly Copilot, you can go into aka.ms/ is it HLS Candidly Copilot? I got to look. There's a web address for that. But if you go to the blog, you'll see the posts that we're posting around this. This is our second episode around that. And with that, I want to get out and I want to just share one last resource. Hope I have that up. If you have not been here, I'm going to have the link to this. The Microsoft 365 Copilot adoption page. There is a plethora of great resources to help you before, during, and post your implementation. We have things for ongoing support, ongoing instructions and training, ongoing success kit where we continue to add to that. You can see we have the full success kit that's here, implementation overview, user enablement guide, technical readiness guides, delivering business results, accelerating, and you can see all the content that we're providing you as a Microsoft customer. And we do the same with training. We do the same with the Copilot community that's available. There's interactive scenarios. We have personas, all kinds of goodies. So be sure to check that. With that, we're at the end. This is Mike Gannotti and my colleague who is not here today, but we miss him dearly, Chad Stout. Bidding you have a great week. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. And as always, ciao. And I'm going to stop recording now.